LauraGyoga. This is our fourth week of the Kosha series, and the fourth Kosha is Vijnanamaya Kosha. And Vijnanamaya Kosha is the wisdom body. It's the sheath of our body that contains our wisdom, it's our insight, and there's a lot of different aspects of collective knowledge talked about in the wisdom body. It's something along the lines of our instinct. It's the things that you never really learn per se in a particular way, but you just sort of innately know it and you're not sure why. An example would be if you're afraid of a certain animal. You might be a child and you can look at a wolf or something like that and know that you probably shouldn't go over and pet the growling wolf. You don't really know how you know that. Maybe nobody actually explained to you that that wolf is dangerous and it might eat you and you shouldn't pet it. But just seeing that growling wolf, you already know from your instincts that you should not go over to it, and then you should probably go the opposite way. So those are things that we see as part of the collective knowledge, and that comes from such a deeper layer. But the big thing that I'm really focusing on, especially for the practice this week, is the connection of Vijnanamaya Kosha to our intuition. It's a huge thing in yoga. Connecting to the inner knowledge and the inner answers that we have. Because so much of the time on the manomaya kosha, on the mind sheath, we get stuck in the thought patterns and all of the busyness. That clutter keeps us from seeing what's underneath. And if we don't clear out the manomaya kosha, the mind sheath, then we won't be able to connect to this inner wisdom that we already have. And a lot of what we learn in yoga is that we already have all of these things within us. We just get disconnected to it. We forget that it's there. We don't focus our attention toward it, and then we lose that awareness. So when we start to progress down the koshas and we get to these inner layers, the Vijnanamaya kosha, and then next week the bliss body, those are two areas that are always within us, but we lose our connection to it because we're so distracted outwardly and we're so focused on the physical body and what goes along with that. So working on connecting to our intuition ties in really strongly with a focus on our third eye chakra. When we focus on the third eye, it's really connecting to the Vijnanamaya kosha, the inner wisdom that we have. It's our insight. And it's clarity. It's when you have a certain kind of knowing and you're not really sure why you know that you need to do something or go somewhere. And other people might not necessarily understand why you feel so drawn to do that thing. But for you, there's a certain kind of clarity that tells you that you must do that thing. And that comes from being able to listen to your inner voice without doubting it, which is really hard for us a lot of times. You might have that voice telling you that you should do something, you should quit your job, you should travel to a certain place, you should look into a certain relationship, but then fear will sometimes keep us from actually acting on that inner voice. And sometimes that can have to do with the clutter on the manomaya kosha. If you haven't cleared out the mind and there's still lots of activity there, it's going to make it more difficult to find that space of clarity to be able to act on the information that you find in the Vijnanamaya kosha. So this concept of collective knowledge, of inner knowing, there's a few different people who talk about this, but the two that kind of jump out to me are Carl Jung, and Carl Jung is a psychologist. He was back in like kind of the founding days of psychology as a modern science. And he has a lot of theories about these collective unconscious, there's archetypes of certain types of people and characteristics. There's like a hero archetype and this image that we see over and over in literature, in religion, and just in society in general. In movies you'll see it a lot. There's these archetypes that have this universal kind of understanding of, oh, well, that's the hero figure. And two of the things that he has in his theories are this idea of sensing and intuition. So it pulls really strongly into the Indian philosophy of the Vijnanamaya kosha as an inner knowing, as an inner knowledge. And then the other person who really jumped out at me with this kind of teaching is Eckhart Tolle, because he talks about this collective pain body, that when we experience fear and anxiety, that it's not only just from the things that are going on in our life, but it's every other human being that contributes to that body of pain. And this brings us to a spot where in yoga we say that we want to work on our own sense of peace. We can't control anyone else. We can't make anyone else more peaceful, more calm, connect to their inner bliss, or any of those kind of things. The only person that we have control over that, the only person that we can have do this sort of work is ourselves. And through doing that work, we're going to deal with our own anxiety and our own fears and make sure that we don't get stuck in this collective pain body. If you have things like panic attacks or depression, you have a very strong connection to the pain body, where when you try to break free of that and you start to connect to some of the other aspects, in yoga the next kosha would be the bliss body, creating a stronger connection to the fifth kosha, and moving away from this connection to the pain body would be most people's goals. But I would definitely recommend looking into the teachings of those two if you want more information on this concept of collective knowledge. And they say that it's something that's passed down within the last 7 generations. There's a really strong tie. So if your ancestors within the last 7 generations went through some sort of really traumatic experience, the concept is that that is still in your DNA, it's still ingrained in your Vijnanamaya kosha, and it's still ingrained in this collective pain body. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. But it doesn't mean that you are stuck and saddled with that you're always going to have to deal with it. Just something to be aware of that you will have to work through. When we do our practice, we're going to be using these 2 elements, light and sound. The light aspect strongly connects to the idea of knowledge. So light is something that we talk about in terms of a guru. A guru is the giver of light, the giver of knowledge. It's the person who passes the information on to you so that you can have a practice and you can do yoga to eventually reach that state of enlightenment. And sound, the waves of sound, are something that have a transformative quality when it comes to healing and being aware of these deeper layers of knowing. So the 2 things that we're going to use in our practice are candle gazing. We'll just have a candle right at the front of the mat, or in class this week we're actually doing a circle in the room around the candle in the center. And the sound bath, being able to just soak in the sounds of the singing bowls or whatever music, whatever chants we have on, soaking that into every cell of your body. And especially if it is a chant, most of the chants have a very deep meaning. It's usually connecting to some aspect of yourself or the divine, connecting to peace. And those are things that we want to soak in because it connects to this deeper level at the Vijnanamaya kosha. It goes a little bit lower than just the mind, just the facts and the information that we're trained to know. And the next part of the yoga board, I wrote down this question, who am I? Which we talked about last week with the manomaya kosha. But at this point, I like to kind of look at the difference between the manomaya kosha and the Vijnanamaya kosha. So if you ask your manomaya kosha, who am I? It's going to say, you are Laura, you are a yoga teacher, you're a therapist, you live in New Jersey, you were born in May. It's going to tell you all these different facts and figures and information. It might even go into the space of judgment, of saying, I don't know, my hair doesn't always look nice or something like that. One of those kind of personal things that I tend to hang on to, or whatever yours might be that you tend to hang on to. A lot of times it might have to do with your weight, that you're either too heavy or not strong enough, or whatever it is that you kind of criticize about your body. Those might be the things that you identify with on the layer of the manomaya kosha. Or those are at least the ways that the manomaya kosha identifies who you are, even though that's not the true self. The Vijnanamaya kosha is going to go a little bit lower than that, and you might get some sort of a more abstract answer to your question of who am I, something to the effect of I am a spiritual being occupying a physical body, having an experience as a human on this planet. Something a little bit more out there, I'll say. But the Vijnanamaya Kosha is where we're going to start to get a stronger connection to the fact that, okay, there's this layer, but I can see that there's something underneath here and something even a little bit lower there that looks like it's more toward the core of my being. This is the layer that's going to make it easier to identify the fact that the koshas are not the true self. The koshas are the layers that we wrap around the true self. And the second part of the word, the maya, means illusion of not the capital S self. So these are the layers that consist of other things besides the soul or besides the true self. So I already said we're going to do a third eye practice, and we're also going to work on this concept of the heart-mind. And this is kind of where I see the blending of the manomaya and the Vijnanamaya Kosha. The concrete being the mind, and the sort of more intuitive kind of insightfulness being this blend of the mind and the heart. So when we draw our hands together into Anjali Mudra and we pull that into the heart and then drop the head down, it's a symbolic gesture of not just existing in the brain, in the mind, but dropping down and acknowledging what's in the heart. And we want to create a balance of the two. Of course, we can't just run around and do whatever we want all the time because our heart leads us in all different directions. There's always a balance between things in yoga. With that same idea, we're going to do this Sankalpa, or the Heartfelt intention. And the Sankalpa, we're using this mudra that I call the seed mudra, but it's a space of starting in Anjali Mudra and then tenting the fingers out to the side, so it creates this seed shape like that. And the idea is that within that space, you're holding it at the heart, and you're placing your heartfelt intention in there, whatever it might be, to cultivate peace, to have a greater connection to your inner world, to have a greater level of self-acceptance, whatever it is that speaks to you that you want to work on, to do some deep work on forgiveness and letting go of things, whatever you feel like is really important in your life and in your practice. And then we draw that up to the third eye and we hold it there so that we can soak in that heartfelt intention and really hold on to it. And we'll do that a few times during our practice to solidify that connection to the Sankalpa. The movements that we're going to do are pretty gentle for this practice because it is an inwardly focused practice. The deeper down the koshas that we get, the more inward our focus is. We're going down those layers, so there's not a huge amount of movement and challenging asana practice to go along with that. It's very meditative. So I hope that you can join us for our practice for the fourth kosha, the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Namaste, thank you for watching.